Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something fundamental, something that, if ignored, will ensure your relationships are doomed before they even begin. That is, taking responsibility for your own emotional baggage before you enter a relationship. We have this strange idea in modern society that love should be effortless, that relationships should just work if you meet the right person. That's nonsense. Relationships are complex. They are built on responsibility, not just attraction. And if you walk into one burdened with unresolved pain, childhood trauma, resentment, or entitlement, you are not bringing a partner into that relationship. You are bringing a liability. So let's break this down. What does it mean to take responsibility for yourself before you ask someone else to commit to you? First, you need to recognize that you are not perfect. No one is. You have baggage. Everyone does. Maybe you had parents who didn't teach you how to communicate properly. Maybe you were hurt in a past relationship. Maybe you struggle with self-worth. Whatever it is, you cannot expect a partner to fix that for you. That's your job. People often get into relationships hoping their partner will fill a void. They say things like, "I just need someone who makes me happy." No, you don't. You need to become someone who can be happy on their own first. If you are emotionally unstable, insecure, or still carrying past wounds, your partner will feel the weight of that burden, and that's not fair. I've seen this play out hundreds of times. People enter relationships looking for salvation instead of partnership, and when that inevitably fails, they blame the other person instead of taking responsibility for their own state. That's a childish way to approach something as serious as love. Now, does this mean you need to be completely healed before entering a relationship? Of course not. That's impossible. But it does mean you need to be aware of your flaws, your weaknesses, and your unresolved issues. You need to work on them consciously rather than offloading them onto someone else. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make, expecting their partner to fix them. This is one of the most toxic mindsets you can bring into a relationship. Think about it. If you are unhappy, insecure, or emotionally volatile, and you believe a relationship will cure that, what happens when it doesn't? You become resentful. You start blaming the other person for your own unhappiness. You say things like, "You don't make me feel loved," or "You don't understand me." But the real issue isn't them, it's you. A relationship is not a therapy session. Your partner is not your psychologist. They are not there to solve your past traumas. If you walk into a relationship still carrying emotional wounds that you haven't even attempted to heal, then what you're really doing is making your suffering someone else's responsibility. That's selfish. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you can't lean on your partner in times of need. Of course, a good relationship involves mutual support, but there's a difference between sharing your struggles and making them someone else's problem. So what should you do instead? Well, before you bring another person into your emotional world, clean up your own house first. All right, so what does it actually look like to take responsibility for yourself before entering a relationship? I'll break it down into 3 key steps. Step 1, identify your baggage. The first step is self-awareness. You need to identify your emotional weaknesses and patterns. What insecurities do you struggle with? Do you have trust issues? Do you get defensive when criticized? Do you lash out when things don't go your way? Most people don't even ask themselves these questions. They just assume that if the right person comes along, everything will magically work out. But that's a delusion. If you don't address these patterns, you will repeat them in every relationship. One of the most productive things you can do is journal about your past experiences. Write down what went wrong in your previous relationships without blaming the other person. Look for patterns. If every single one of your relationships ended in the same way, maybe it's not just bad luck, maybe it's you. Step 2, work on yourself first. Once you've identified your issues, do the work. That means reading, learning, going to therapy if necessary. It means improving your ability to regulate your emotions. It means working on your self-esteem so that you don't rely on someone else to give you a sense of worth. If you have trust issues, ask yourself why. Is it because of a past betrayal? If so, don't make your new partner pay for someone else's mistakes. Learn to build trust again. If you struggle with anger, develop emotional control. If you have unhealthy attachment patterns, learn how to create secure connections. A strong relationship isn't built by 2 broken people trying to fix each other. It's built by 2 individuals who have taken responsibility for their own emotional well-being. Step 3, set a standard for yourself. Finally, once you've done the work, you need to set a standard for the type of relationship you want. If you've healed your emotional wounds, don't settle for someone who refuses to work on theirs. You are not responsible for fixing anyone. Just as you need to take responsibility for yourself, so does your partner. Now, does this mean you should look for perfection? No, of course not. But you should look for someone who takes responsibility for their own emotional baggage, just as you have. A relationship should be a partnership, not a rescue mission. The role of vulnerability and mutual growth. Once you have taken responsibility for your own emotional baggage, you can open yourself up to a genuine connection. But here's the important part. Being emotionally responsible doesn't mean you close yourself off from vulnerability. In fact, vulnerability is necessary for a relationship to thrive. Here's the catch. Vulnerability isn't about dumping your emotional issues onto your partner. That's a mistake. It's about being open enough to allow them into your emotional world in a way that allows for mutual understanding and growth. You see, a relationship isn't about having one person fix the other. It's about two individuals growing together, supporting each other's growth. You can't do this if you're expecting the other person to save you. You can only grow together if you're willing to be vulnerable and let your partner in, but only in a way that is healthy. You have to have boundaries too. It's about sharing your struggles while also taking responsibility for them. So, emotional responsibility is a two-way street. It's about being strong enough to hold your own, but also humble enough to lean on your partner when needed. The strength to show your vulnerability without expecting the other person to solve your problems for you is what creates a deep, lasting connection. At this point, we should talk about the concept of emotional independence and how it relates to relationships. It's tempting to think that in a relationship, two people should become one. This can create the idea that you should abandon your individuality and merge completely with your partner, and that's a mistake. If you lose your emotional independence in a relationship, you risk becoming codependent. Codependency occurs when you rely on your partner for your emotional stability, your self-worth, or your happiness. And this is where many people go wrong. A healthy relationship is about interdependence, not dependence. Interdependence is when two people are independent and emotionally stable, but they come together to form a relationship that enhances both of their lives. It's not about two people desperately clinging to each other for emotional survival. It's about two people bringing their best selves to the relationship and helping each other grow. If you expect your partner to be your emotional crutch, you are not in a healthy relationship. You are in an emotional transaction, one that will likely collapse once the weight of the other person's emotional needs becomes too much to bear. You need to develop a sense of emotional independence, a place where you can stand firm in your own sense of self-worth. Only then can you come to a relationship as a whole person, not as someone who needs fixing. So how can you tell when you're in a healthy relationship? Well, it's simple, really. A healthy relationship is one where both partners are responsible for their own emotional health. They don't offload their unresolved issues onto each other. They communicate openly, honestly, and respectfully. They understand that growth takes time, and they're both willing to put in the effort. You will recognize this kind of relationship because it will feel empowering, not draining. You will both be able to express your needs and vulnerabilities without fear of judgment or abandonment. And most importantly, you will respect each other's individuality. You are two independent people choosing to be together, not because you need to be, but because you want to be. So to wrap this up, if you want a healthy relationship, you need to take responsibility for your own emotional baggage. You cannot expect anyone else to fix you. Your partner cannot be your emotional savior. Only you can do the work required to heal, grow, and become emotionally responsible. Once you do that, you will be able to enter a relationship from a place of strength and maturity, and it's from that place that a real, lasting relationship can flourish, one based on mutual respect, growth, and love. Remember this, a relationship is not a rescue mission. It is a partnership built on responsibility, vulnerability, and a commitment to growth. So, take responsibility for yourself, do the work, and only then will you be able to offer the kind of love and support that a true, meaningful relationship requires.